So my boyfriend and I had been living in our house for about a year and had no strange things happen. A couple of months ago that changed. The first weird thing was my boyfriend thought he heard crying outside of our bedroom while I was in the bathroom. He thought it was me, but I had been in the shower. He said it was clear as day and it freaked him out. He isn't one to believe in the paranormal, so I believed him. Whack, but maybe it was just house noises. The second thing happened last week. We were going to bed, and I felt a thumb or a finger touch my shoulder. We were both laying opposite on our phones, and I thought he was trying to be playful. When I called him out, he said that he hadn't touched me. I thought he was messing around, but he said that he really hadn't touched me. It legit felt like someone had touched my shoulder. It was so creepy. The last thing, which I'm not sure if it's related, but my boyfriend has had a recurring dream the last couple weeks, and 2 nights ago, he actually woke me with this screaming. He said the dream is always this strange woman trying to get to him. I might be connecting things that don't need to be connected, but it's weird that it's happening. He barely remembers his dreams normally, but this one is so vivid. So yeah, I'm skeptical, but I thought I'd share my weird happenings. I used to play hide and seek with my neighbors when we were young in our building. And this one time, it was my turn to find them. Me and my friend, let's call him Mark, were searching for the others when we both saw one of them looking at us and smiling while backing into the darkness, like he was trying to get us to follow him. I don't know how we saw his face. It was dark, but it was almost like it was illuminated. So I started going after him, but then I stopped because I glanced back and saw that same person behind us. At that moment, I stopped playing and went home. Till this day, I don't know what it was or what it wanted from me. Back in 2011, my granddad passed away at his home. A week before he passed, he wanted a new mobile phone that he saw in a magazine, so my nan ordered it for him. It arrived on the day he passed away. Obviously, my granddad wasn't alive anymore to use his new mobile phone, so my nan decided to use it as she couldn't return it, and said she needed a new phone anyway. It was a very weird looking phone. There was more room for the keypad than the actual screen, so you couldn't really use it for texting, so she only used it for calls. Back then, she didn't know how to text on a keypad phone, so she added known mobile number contacts like my mom, brother, and other family. About 2 days after my granddad passed away, we were talking about the memories from when he was alive and how much we loved and missed him, and the phone received a text message. We all went quiet and checked the phone. It was a weird number, and there was just a blank text. We thought it was a coincidence that the phone went off while we were talking about my granddad. But this didn't just happen once. It happened again and again whenever we spoke about him, and it was from the same number with just a blank message. I believe it was my granddad showing signs that he was still there and wanting us to know that he'll never leave. It freaked me out, but still kind of gave me comfort. I then experienced something else that was spooky. My nan has a china cabinet that she still owns from 20 plus years ago, and it has a built-in mirror inside. I was brushing my hair in the mirror, and then behind me, I saw my granddad sitting in the chair he passed away in, just smiling at me. I was pretty young, so I obviously froze and got really freaked out to the point that I ran to my mom and grandma crying. They didn't believe me at first, but now they do, since I haven't changed my story since it happened. I still mention it to this day. We kept receiving texts for 3 years after my granddad passed, and bear in mind, this only happened whenever we were speaking about him, until my nan decided to get a new phone and SIM card. She switched the phone off and kept it in a drawer ever since. The text tone always gave me some feeling of comfort, but it still makes me shiver a bit. Years later, I found out it was a very famous EDM song called Children by Robert Miles. Whenever I hear the song, It always brings back memories and gives me some sort of comfort, yet spooky feeling. I found the phone today. It's currently charging. But I think he's moved on. We have yet to receive a text message. Before going into the story, I regretfully did not keep the photo, but I wish I did. I promise that this is a real event from my childhood, and it has stuck with me for probably 15 years. This isn't some creepypasta or anything, just a recollection of what happened, so bear with me. When I was a young kid, a friend and I were camping in his backyard. His family recently had a yard sale and were throwing a box of books away that they didn't sell, so we were going through them. We were talking and flipping through the books, and then my friend grows silent and is just staring at the book that he had. I asked him what's up, and he said something along the lines of, "You don't even want to see," or something like that. Well, of course, after that I certainly did. What he handed me was a photo that was inside of the book. Not part of the book. This was an actual photo that someone had taken and put in the book. The photo looked very old. Looking back, it seemed like one of those pioneer photos, or at least from the late 1800s or early 1900s. It had a woman in it facing the camera. She was in a field with a tree line behind her. She had an elongated face, and her mouth was agape. When I say elongated, I mean unnaturally so, as if she was disfigured. She was holding her arms up, but they bent at the elbow forward, nearly 90 degrees, with her hand open pointed toward the ground. She was wearing a black dress, not like the generic pioneer style dress. This was just all black and looked more like a gown. I believe she had longer, scraggly hair. So being a kid, I freaked out and threw it in the fire that we had going. About an hour later, we put out the fire and went inside. The next day, we woke up to clean up our mess in the backyard, and the photo was still intact, burnt, but you could mostly see what was on it. My only explanation is maybe it landed on the edge of the fire pit, where the fire hadn't reached and got mixed in with the ashes when we put it out. Even more freaked out, the photo was ripped up and thrown into the ashes, and we never really talked about it after that. I've tried to find something similar to this photo online, sporadically, and I can't. I was too young to really analyze it, so looking back, I don't know if it was some photo for a horror or art project, but at the time, it was pretty terrifying. This is the 4th time I posted this story. I really want to know what I saw that night. Can anyone help? First, I need to explain the house. The first floor was on stilts, high enough to make it second floor worthy. The second floor was 3 stories high as a result. My bedroom was on the first floor. My brother's was on the second. Okay, the story. I was in bed for school the next day, not quite tired yet, as it was only 9:30 or something. All of a sudden, I hear the crunching of pebbles, like someone was walking on them. Our side driveway is made of pebbles. Nothing unusual. I figured Dad is walking to the garage. But what I saw was definitely not my dad. It was definitely not a human being. The thing walked by my window. It took up the entire height of it. I only saw bright white as my window was closed, but this thing was unmistakably taller than my bedroom window. Keep in mind, 2 stories high. I was immediately gripped by fear, as any normal child would be. I dug into my head for some kind of explanation. It took me a while to fall asleep after that. I never forgot that night. I chalked it up to a dream eventually. I mean, what else could it have been? Around 9 years later, I forget how the subject of the paranormal was brought up. I mentioned seeing a tall white giant being when we lived in Illinois. That's when I learned my brother saw it too. He was on the second floor. That put him 3 stories high. He saw its head and shoulders. He said it had long dirty gray or white hair. It looked like a giant homeless person who hadn't washed in years. He doesn't remember if the shoulders had hair. He couldn't tell if it had eyes or a nose, He only saw it from the back, so we don't know if it was furry or just had skin past its head and shoulders. We saw the same thing at the same time on the same day. It couldn't have been a dream. I've Googled possibilities like Wendigo, Bigfoot, or storm spirits. I would show my brother the pictures. The answer is usually no or similar, but these features aren't like what I saw. You get the idea. So what was it? I consider these possibilities. Bigfoot? I don't think so. Bigfoot is supposedly 7 feet tall or so, not 3 goddamn stories. A ghost? I'm not sure, but I don't think ghosts crunch pebbles in a driveway. And ghosts typically appear multiple times and around haunted places. This is the only time either of us saw anything paranormal in our entire lives. Some sort of alien? Perhaps. It appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. But this is in the middle of a city. I had neighbors on all sides. I lived on a fucking main street and it was only 9:30. Somebody should have seen something. A troll? I mean, maybe, but what do trolls really look like? Wendigo? Possibly. It's usually depicted as having horns, although, as Sean Smallman notes, traditional indigenous narratives never imagine the Wendigo with antlers. But they are said to be 15 feet tall, which would be tall enough to be seen by both of us. I haven't seen any mention of long hair, but who knows? Maybe I can be the one to edit the Wikipedia entry. And anyone who encounters a Wendigo risks being devoured, or even being turned into a Wendigo. We both survived, and last I checked, we aren't Wendigos. Another recent possibility, a storm spirit or nature spirit, though they aren't explicitly stated to be humanoid in appearance. A tornado blew through the area soon after, but that's not unusual since we were in Tornado Alley. Could it be a traveling trans-dimensional being that temporarily phased into our dimension and then phased back out, and it just so happened to be in our side driveway? No fucking clue. It's been really bugging me. I have no real explanation whatsoever. I know people who have claimed to see ghosts, Bigfoot, and even aliens, but what I saw was something special, and apparently really fucking rare because all of my research drew nothing even close. It's maddening. I guess this is a struggle for those of us who know we saw something, but we can't explain. For an exact location, Google Earth, Flora, Illinois. Find Washington Elementary School. My house is on the corner of South Main and Washington. You'll see the side driveway there. This was around late 2000, possibly early 2001. I was 4 years old. I remember waking up one night, especially early in the morning. It was pitch black out. Everyone was fast asleep apart from me, of course. Me and my siblings had a creepy stuffed trio set of Goldilocks' 3 bears. I was awoken abruptly by the sound of the Henry Hall Orchestra, Teddy Bear's Picnic song playing, except it was many keys lower, almost sounding like an electric kid's toy running critically low on battery. It was eerie and deep. It sounded bass key-like, almost demonic. In the small bedroom I shared with my brother, there was a small single bed for me, and a bunk bed opposite with my brother at the bottom, and all the toys on top. Well, as the creepy song was playing, the father bear, who was standing tall on the other action figures, board games, and dolls, smiled a friendly but oddly different than normal smile. I thought it was strange, and then he creepily started to dance to the song playing from his side, staring directly at me like he was waiting for my approval. It lasted only 30 seconds or so, and I couldn't move from where I was lying or scream, but I felt oddly calm. It looked completely real. Once the music stopped, I became sleepy again, and suddenly went into a dream state. I zoomed into the stuffed bear's face, and then dreamt I was inside him, and there was a workhouse full of friendly teddy bears arranging flowers. That's all I can remember. I guess it wasn't so bad, but then the next night came, and I asked my parents to move me to the other room with my big sister. They gave in, which I thank them for still to this day. In the room I shared with her, there was just the double bed. If ever I had horrible dreams, my sister would let me hold her hand, and then for some reason the bad dreams would just go away. She was like my human dream catcher in that period. This next event took place in early 2003, again happening in the early hours of the morning. Same sort of case scenario, except in a different house. And there was just a bunk bed in the room. I had the bottom bunk, while my older brother had the top. My brother once owned one of those vintage large remote control Power Ranger type robot toys. It was a green color. It always sat on top of the dresser, to the left of our bunk bed. I remember my brother complaining earlier that day that the robot's battery was dead. The toy was practically broken for good. He still kept it on top of the dresser for reasons I don't know. It freaked me out just by looking at it. Anyway, it was just me awake at this time, and I remember looking up at the top of the dresser, and it was bobbing its head around and around, looking up at my brother and then down at me. His head stopped spinning every few seconds when he was looking directly at me or my brother. He carried on staring for a couple of seconds or so, and then started spinning his head again before stopping to look at my brother, and so on. This one came across even more realistic to me. It was like the Power Ranger robot was trying to keep an eye on me and my brother, almost like a positive spirit of some sort. I again couldn't move a muscle or make a sound. My brother also owned Warhammer figures, and they too were actually shaking around on the dresser like there was a strong energy field. I again tried to move to another room the next day, but I was told to face my fears, as I was past a certain age by then. Anyway, I never had an experience like this again.